Welcome to the Tactical Business Podcast. I am your host, Wade Skalsky, and today I'm speaking with Mitch Barrie from Mesa Tactical. Mitch, how are you doing today, sir?
Good morning, Wade. I'm doing really well.
Good. I have to, and I know I told you this in advance, but we're on a snow day today, so my kids are home, so we may hear them being rambunctious or my dog being rambunctious, but it seems there is no actual snow on the ground, and you and I are in the only two parts of the country right now that don't have that problem.
Yeah, apparently.
So you're out in Reno, yeah?
Yep, Reno.
So that's a beautiful part of the country. I lived in California for 16 years and like to get up to Tahoe and Reno and loved it up there. So it's just a beautiful part of the country. But
Yes, it's very nice. Yeah.
how did you get up there? How did you get, to Reno? How did you get into the business that you're in? Give me a little backstory.
Well, I'll do the Reno thing first because that came later. I'm a California native. I was born in California. I grew up in California. I lived in California until I was in my 50s. I moved to Europe a couple times, but basically I'm from California, Southern California, and we'll talk about firearms in a minute. But obviously California is not a very firearms friendly place. But the biggest problem I had with California, having grown up there, having grown up, in the 60s and 70s, is it's just a very crowded place. And especially in Southern California, they didn't know when to stop. They just developed everything. And the California that I grew up in disappeared basically by the time I was 25 or 30. And at some point after I'd already started the company, we'd been in business for a few years, I said, I've got to get out. I've got to go someplace. And because at that time, especially, I was doing a lot of mountaineering, I looked on a map. I literally just looked on a map and I said, that looks nice. And I decided to move to Reno without ever visiting it, which maybe is an admission of some of the impetuous decisions I make. But, made a few trips up here, just were delighted with it. It's a beautiful place. It's an absolutely beautiful place. I had no idea. And as a Californian, I'll tell you the thing I like most about Reno, frankly, is the climate. We have 4 seasons here, and if you grow up in Southern California, you don't have seasons. You don't realize how wonderful it is to have seasons. And so I just we sent the employees on a van, sent them up here, said, "You guys want to come?" And most of them did, and we just picked up the whole company and moved it. Because we're a manufacturing business, we can pretty much be anywhere in the country. So I'm not relying on retail business at all. And the way I got into the business started when I was 18 in a way, because I've had several careers. And for the longest time, for about 15 years, I was in technology, in Silicon Valley technology. And that was gratifying in many ways, but in other ways, there's a real problem with that. Everything that I did in that business was obsolete within a few years. And I guess it doesn't bother very many people. It bothered me, though, because I think people think about legacies and things like that sometimes, especially as you get older. But the entire time I had been working, I would always remember the best job I ever had, the job that I literally, when the alarm went off in the morning, I jumped out of bed. That's how much I enjoyed this job. It was a job working in a machine shop when I was 18. And I have tremendous respect for any kind of a business that makes things, manufacturing. There's a saying that we have around here in northern Nevada, because there's so many miners, is basically if it wasn't grown, it was taken out of the ground by somebody. To underline the point that everything in our daily lives is manufactured. Somebody had to make that. And working in the machine shop was such a gratifying job. And I was just 18, just a kid. And through the rest of my career, I always thought about that. So at the end of my tech career, I wanted to get into manufacturing, into what I wanted to make things you can drop on your foot. I didn't want to continue in technology, making software. Nothing wrong with software. It's just, I think after 15 years, I thought it was too ephemeral. And the firearms thing was, I had the privilege of being able to turn a I guess, a hobby. This is kind of a dream that everybody wants to do, turned a hobby into a business. Um, it was either going to be firearms or automotive aftermarket, because those are the two big interests that I had at the time.
Well, and there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, first of all, let's talk a little bit about the before we get into the specifics about what you guys manufacture and what you guys do. Let's talk about the decision to move your team up there, right? So that most people, I think, in that scenario, um, might say, okay, we're just going to use this as an opportunity to reset and maybe find, people locally where we're going. What went into the decision that you were like, okay, we're going to actually offer this to our people to move up there? Like, how did you arrive at that? Was that something that you just were, like you said, kind of off the cuff, or did you put thought into it? How did that happen?
Well, it's actually very obvious to us. First, we're a very small company. Um, so it's not like I had to, open a facility and find 50 or 100 people. Secondly, as a small company, and it's kind of I guess, my style, it's almost like a family. So your employees are kind of members of your family. We literally had family members, brothers and sisters, and other relations working in the company here together. So it was never a question of, oh, I'm just going to leave everybody behind and start another company, set up someplace else. The company is the people. I feel that very strongly. The company is me and the people. And you're not, without the people, you don't have a company. So we offered literally to everybody in the company to go. And as you can imagine, especially mostly with the younger people, they're more conservative and didn't want to, a lot of them didn't want to go, and never, they had grown up where they lived in Santa Ana and Orange County, and weren't really, never considered ever leaving. I think a lot of people are like that. The irony is almost all of these people, their parents came from other countries, from Mexico usually, or El Salvador, and yet they didn't want to leave. So it was quite an adventure for them. I didn't get everybody to go. We got, a few people insisted on staying home. But it was also an opportunity. I mean, these folks in Southern California could not buy homes. That was out of their reach, and that's one of the reasons we decided to move. Also, was so they could buy homes, and they did. Several of them, they bought homes for the first time, and that just would not have been an option in Southern California.
Yeah,
So
my dad, he had a concrete company, like he was a subcontractor with concrete. And when we were in North Dakota, he decided to move down to Arizona at that time, from the coldest place to the hottest place. But that's kind of, and I think he did the same thing. I think he just picked on a map. He said, well, what's busy right now? Where can I take my company? And he brought his core crew down there. Everyone moved down there. They went into an apartment. And I think one reason why that works is because when you start a business, like, you remember, it's pretty difficult to find people to train them up, right? And in the beginning parts of that move, it's a tenuous time for your business. So I think that was very wise to take that human capital with you and set yourself on a path for success for that. And I think the maxim that the people are the business, I think, is very true, because I think a lot of times people, business owners will think that their labor is fungible, right? Like, oh, I can just, move people in and out. And I don't think that's the case at all.
I think of a smaller company, it's almost inconceivable to me that a smaller company would even think that way. If you look at the business newspapers and magazines, they're not talking to people like me. They're talking to a managerial class where the people really are fungible. They're inputs like anything else. But I think if I go down to a business park here in Reno or even in Southern California, and you find small businesses, fewer than 10 people, fewer than 20 people, I don't think you're going to see that attitude amongst the managers. I think there's a very different um, uh, mentality. When you get to a smaller business, having the people, people are important to every business, but specific people and the lore that they have, you know, when you have a small business, there's lore in terms of how you do things. And then there's, of course, the relationships that the people in your business have with your vendors and with your customers. These people aren't interchangeable. And then there's just a moral thing. You don't treat people like, a pallet full of steel. Uh, they're part of your business. So it wasn't a difficult decision. It was just, okay, this is just going to be another cost in 2016, the cost of moving the company, and the cost of moving everybody up there. Um, who wants to come? But it was
Well,
a
but
big advantage.
for you, yeah, well, for you, it wasn't a decision, but I think that speaks to just you as a business owner, right? Like, because to a lot of people, it would be. I would say that I would say you're the minority by doing that decision. Um, but obviously it turned out great. Well, let's get into brass tacks a little bit about what you guys do. Like, walk me through sort of what the business does, what you manufacture, and sort of how you're positioning yourself in the marketplace right now.
Well, we're a very niche business. We make shotgun accessories, and by that I mean stocks, forends, on-gun shell carriers for tactical shotguns. And the tactical shotgun is basically a shotgun used by law enforcement. Our focus from the beginning was very much on law enforcement. My father was a cop, so I've had some exposure into that from a very early age, and law enforcement's kind of a nice specific market to attack, to focus on, rather than trying to do something that's very broad. Um, we our products work on hunting shotguns, and we get a lot of people calling, hunters, turkey hunters especially, who asking about this and that. Can I do this? Can I do that? And hunting is so broad. There's so many platforms. There's so much variety to what people are trying to do. And honestly, I'll tell you honestly, I don't even understand hunting. Tactical shotguns are very easy for me to get my head around, but all the things involved with hunting, not so much. So we say, no, we're narrowly focused on tactical shotguns. We're narrowly focused on about 6 or 7 different shotgun platforms. And we also, when I started the company, I made a decision very early on. I'm not interested in competing on price. As a businessman in my earlier career, I always decided, trying to compete on price is a losing proposition. Always somebody's going to come in cheaper than you. And to get to be the lowest cost guy, you're going to have to make a lot of product compromises. So we went the other way. We just focused, and I think we were one of the first. We've been in business 20 years, and at the time, if you wanted to buy shotgun accessories, shell carriers, stocks, and things, they were pretty cheap, I would say. I don't want to say they were garbage or anything like that. They were just fairly cheap, and especially when we came out with our shell carrier, the Sure Shell shell carrier, and we talked to agencies. The prevailing product on the market at the time, many agencies regarded them as consumables. They would actually throw the shell carrier away after a couple seasons because it just couldn't hold up. And our shell carrier was much more expensive. Originally, it was made out of metal instead of plastic. We just focused on making the best thing we could at a price that wouldn't scare away the customers. And that's what we've been doing ever since, just really trying to focus on innovation and quality. And it has gotten a lot harder because in the last 20 years, other people have entered the market, with the same attitude. Other people have come in making, high quality stuff. But when we started, we had the advantage that I think a lot of the stuff out there at the time was kind of Fisher Price type stuff. Not like that anymore, though. There's some, serious, very, very good competitors at the moment.
Well, and I think that niching down it can be a very viable business approach because, the two-way space, I'm not going to say it's saturated because I don't think it is, but there is a lot of people in it now, right? And the barrier to entry is very small compared to what it used to be. But I love what you guys do. My shotgun, I don't own a hunting shotgun. The only shotgun I have is a Mossberg 500 ATI tactical shotgun. So that's my shotgun. Yeah, I mean, I do own a hunting shotgun, but it was given to me by my dad and all that. But that space, people get just, people are like, I'm an AK guy, or, or I'm a AR guy or whatever, but there's a large contingent of, on the retail side, I think, of people that dig what you're doing, even though you focus more on the police side of. So I totally get what you guys are doing. I love it.
Well, that's kind of there's actually a marketing plan or a marketing technique. Uh, we discussed this very heavily when we were, about 10 or 12 years ago. We were really trying to come to grips with how we're going to market this. That was a phase when we were growing really rapidly, and we we talked about two customers. One is the law enforcement customer, and today I think law enforcement is probably a little bit less than half of our sales, um, or maybe considerably less than half of our sales. Well, law enforcement is changing right now. I'll get to that in a moment. But then we had what we call the aspirational customer, and the existing example, I think that your other viewers would be most familiar with would be Glock. Now, at that time, Glock's entire marketing campaign at that moment, I don't know what it is now, but all their advertising, everything they did was focused on cops. They advertised to cops, and they advertised in the various firearms media, but the assumption was the audience of this ad, the person I'm talking to is a cop. You're going to, thanks to Glock, get home from your shift, and I'm going to wave some hands here, but I think Glock has something like 60% of the law enforcement sidearm market, something like that. And Glock has a huge percentage of the civilian or the non, some people don't like me to say civilian, but I'm going to say civilian, the civilian non-law enforcement market. So plenty of people, and Glock knows this is why they were doing this. They want what the police have. And that's why Glock would advertise to the police. They're really talking to the civilian customer, the civilian prospect, because that guy wants what the professionals have. And I got this from the automotive aftermarket. I've got a car, a 66 El Camino, and it's full of go fast stuff that car will never go anymore now that in my age. It'll never go more than 80 miles an hour, but it could go a lot faster. And why? Well, because I'm a victim of that mentality myself. I want the go fast stuff that the professionals have. So by focusing on the law enforcement market, I accomplish a couple things. First, my product development is simplified. All I have to do is talk to the agencies. What do you guys want? What's wrong with this? I have an idea. What do you think of it? It's nice to be able to just go to the agencies and get that kind of input. And then it gives me a target to actually market at, whether or not the agency is actually the one writing the checks, right? So if I market it to agencies, and if it's a fact, and it is a fact that especially our shell carriers are on many law enforcement shotguns today. In fact, in June of this year, we will ship our 250,000th sure shell carrier. And again, a lot of those are on agency armory weapons. If that's a fact, then I'm going to get that customer who wants what the police have. And that's really what we've been doing, from the beginning.
Well, and I think that's really smart because two things. One, you're developing a market, right? So you're like, okay, like we're going to get the information what the specific market needs. We're going to get feedback from them, and then we're going to, be able to make adjustments to make our product better. But then on the other side, like you said, you get the halo effect from the police agency. So you can say, here's a case study of why this works with this police agency. And then when a normal person like me, right, I'm not a prior, I'm not a SF guy. I never served. I've never been a policeman. I'm just a normal dude. When someone like me goes, well, what am I going to buy? Well, what was the first gun I bought? Well, the first handgun I bought was a Glock, and then I got a Mossberg tactical shotgun for a lot of the reasons that you're talking about. And I think, you're kind of killing two birds with one stone, but you only have to work in one vertical to get going. And I think that's really smart. What do you think caused the consumer side, the retail consumer side market share for you to grow as you were marketing to the police force? Like, was it organic, or was it just something where the officers then were getting stuff for their own guns, or what caused that growth, I think, on the market share to shift a little bit from your initial efforts?
Well, I think if I could answer that, really accurately, I'd be in a lot better position than I am. I don't think our marketing, our promotion was ever very sophisticated. It isn't today. It's actually, we do very little right now at the moment. Um, I I would say organic's an interesting word because I think that's exactly what it was. And I don't think we could have had the same success that we had, over the last 20 years without this new medium, which is the internet, social media. And by social media, I don't mean Facebook. I mean just, thousands and millions of people online talking to each other. And in the firearms community, a lot of that's on these forums, so there is a lot of discussion. There's a downside to that. There's a lot of baloney that's out there that just never goes away. I still get, somebody said something back in 2012, and I'm still getting emails about it, right? But on the whole, it's a very positive thing, especially if you're a small company and you have a good story. Very bad thing if you're a small company and you treat your customers like crap because everybody's going to find out. But if you make something that's good, something that you're happy to stand behind, people will talk about it. And we really never did much advertising, and the advertising we did do, I don't think was very good personally. We never spent a lot of money on it. We were fairly weak in social media, in the traditional ones like Instagram and Facebook and things like that. I think a great deal of our success is this organic thing. But let's talk about that when we talk about success. We're still a very small company. I mean, when people think of of businesses in the firearms community, in the firearms space, they're thinking of people like, Dangle Defense and folks like that. I mean, we're a very small operator compared to a Dangle Defense. So you could say, well, you've been very successful with this organic approach, but what if we did it on a more professional basis? Who knows? We could have been far more successful than we are.
Well, I write for the firearms industry. So step one of being able to do that type of marketing, is be in business, right? So, you can't expand and grow unless you have a baseline of business, right? And then you can start to think about that. And I think what you're very astute in what you're saying about the internet is that, if you start to have that lore, just like you have that lore from your people, you start to get that lore of your history. And when you're having those things on the internet, like if you do any writing or any advertising or whatever, it stays on the internet forever. And so people, these leads will start to swim upstream. They'll hear about you and then they'll find you. And I think that's exciting that you are able to, manufacture from anywhere you want in the country, but you still choose to stay where you are. And then, just focus on your customers and on doing a great product, and it's working for you. Now, where do you see in terms of, you talked about innovation? You said, you kind of alluded that the police forces are changing. Are they moving away from shotguns? Are you seeing that? Are they staying? Is it kind of staying the same? What kind of innovations are they asking for? And how do you decide, okay, we're gonna try to design something new? Like, what's that process look like for you?
Well, you asked a very interesting question about the shotgun or the future of the shotgun and police armories. And it's actually a very sad story is that, yes, they actually are moving away from shotguns. There's been over the 20 years, I've seen a pendulum effect where, they get away from shotguns and then somebody decides, oh, shotguns are really good after all, and they get back into it. I think they're moving away from shotguns at this point. There's a couple reasons for that, which might interest your viewers, and I'll get into. But that's been going on for a while. Our largest deal we ever did, and I guess I can talk about it now because it was so long ago, was with FBI. We had they bought they bought a lot of these stocks. They're going to outfit all of their shotguns with our stock and our shell carriers, and then that deal ended abruptly. And I'm talking about, this is about a dozen years ago, because they made a decision. We're getting rid of the shotguns, we're going to carbines. And that's been repeated in many other LE agencies, and I understand a lot of the reasoning. I think the AR-15 is a very nice platform, especially compared to the 12 gauge shotgun. If you have officers, deputies, or agents who are smaller or who are women, um, the carbine is a very good alternative to a shotgun. I think it's got some disadvantages, but in general, a lot of agencies are moving to the carbine. And there's another thing that's happened in the last 3 or 4 years is, as you know, the Remington business, they went bankrupt. The firearms business was moved to a new company called Rem Arms, and Rem Arms has struggled in the last few years with, uh, um, servicing the tactical market. I should just say the agency market, um, as you could expect. And the Remington 870 was the standard for many, many years for the law enforcement shotgun. And I think the disruption in the Remington 870 business in terms of availability of parts and things like that just gave agencies an opportunity to rethink, you know, the what else can we do other than the 870? Very disappointing because I personally am a huge fan of the 870 itself. I don't like to see agencies move away from it. In many cases, they're moving to semi-autos, and it's amazing um, what's happening with the semi-auto space now with shotguns and police agencies. But more and more and more of them are going to AR-15s. We lost right here at Washoe County, no longer uses shotguns. And I heard a rumor that that might happen in the city of Reno as well. That they might go to carbines. So that's a real issue. So we have to ask ourselves: does that mean the Mesa Tactical's in bad shape? Again, we have the advantage of being a very small company. So, if I was a large manufacturer and I heard that, and I had a big warehouse and I had a big factory and I had 500 people working for me, and I heard that there's this big shift going on with what law enforcement's going to use, I'd be in big trouble because I'd have to pay for that factory and keep that 500 people employed. But we believe here at Mesa Tactical that 2025 is going to be a good year for us. We see growth and opportunity, even though I think the broader trend in the market is that the shotgun is becoming less popular with our core customer. I know that sounds a little counterintuitive, but it's just the difference between being a smaller company with fewer commitments versus somebody who has to really look at the percentages out there and what's going on in the market. We're lucky we don't have to do that.
I worked really intimately for a while with a holster company. I wrote for them, and one thing, and they were small, right? And so one advantage of being small that I really noticed was two things. One, they could really pivot really easily, obviously, right? So they didn't have to run anything through committees or for R&D or anything like that. And then two is they could take chances when they wanted to innovate on something and just try it out because they didn't have to, run it through up the chain. That it really wasn't a matter of spending a ton of money. It was like, oh, let me just make this because I love making it and see what it does, right? I'll stress test it by running it over with my car, right? You know what I mean?
I can't overemphasize that last point. We have made over the years products that if we had accountants in charge of the company would never get made. One of our most successful products, our major product at this point, is our Urbino stock. It's a fixed stock. It is not fancy. It's just a high quality, shorter length of pull stock. I don't want to get into it, but a shorter length of pull is far better for tactical applications. Most shotguns come with a big long stock. They're made for shooting ducks, but the Urbino stock, tremendous success for us. And we introduced it about, 13 years ago, 14 years ago. And the first platform I supported was the Benelli M4. And this came out of requests that we originally had from the Marines, but mostly with LAPD, people at LAPD. And LAPD was not making commitment to buy these. LAPD does not buy stocks. The way LAPD works is like a lot of agencies work. The 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 sidearm and potentially certain other weapons are purchased personally by the officers, and presumably they're reimbursed or something like that. But the agency itself is not making the purchase. So LAPD says, we need this thing, but we're not going to buy them from you because we don't buy shotguns. Our officers do, but we do want this stock. So I said, sounds good to me. I'll do it. Now, and to this day, where I think there's only a couple of companies out there making a stock for the Benelli M4, because the Benelli M4 is not the Remington 870. It's not a Mossberg 500. It doesn't have, thousands and thousands or hundreds of thousands or even millions of units out there that a company that's run by bean counters can say, oh yeah, we could sell into this massive market. Nonetheless, for little old Mesa Tactical, it has been a tremendous success. And then we supported other obscure platforms with that Urbino stock. For example, the Beretta 1301 when it first came out. And now I think the Beretta stock is probably our top seller in terms of platforms. And again, how many people are out there making stocks for the Beretta 1301? Probably only a couple other guys. So yeah, when you're a smaller company, you can make these decisions. And also we've made some bad decisions. We've made products that
nobody bats 1,000, right? So, and
yeah,
I think,
yeah.
and I think it goes back to what we started the podcast is your decision to niche down, right? You're like, okay, we're going to niche down to shotguns. We're going to niche to police forces, and we're going to start there, right? And,
Yeah.
you're not afraid to go to a really smaller market within that space, because you're attacking the diehards then, right? Like you're this in a good way. You're like, okay, we're going to supply, there's these diehards people. Like, for example, when my range does a defensive shotgun course, the same 5 people show up to it, right? Like it's always the same 5 people. And so if you service those people that have the Benellis and they're not getting a lot of support in other places, you create a customer for life, right? And they'll talk about that, and they'll talk about, okay, like, yes, like you may not do a ton of units on the Benelli, but it's going to get you business in other ways. It's going to get your brand loyalty. It's going to get you recognition, and create these relationships and opportunities in other places as well. Because if one guy on the force gets something he digs for his shotgun, he's going to talk to his friends, and they're all going to go buy it then too.
Yeah, that's a big part of our, as I told you before, that's our marketing has been very organic. But yeah, I think focusing on a niche, in tech, there was a book, a very famous book written by a guy named Regis McKinnon. I believe he was I think he was the first PR guy for Apple, right? At the very beginning with Apple. And the focus of his book was how to be successful in technology, or basically any business. And his main point was find a niche, focus on that niche, and dominate that niche. Now, I don't think Mesa Tactical is dominating anything, but the first part of that, I think we've done pretty well on. But his point was, and the reason he emphasized that, and I saw it when I was in technology, is this tendency that people in a manufacturing business or marketing business have to chase other ideas. And a very, very common problem in tech, because if you have a capability, you say, I have this capability, let me do this capability. Might not be a good idea because it's not in the area of focus that you have, that your market has. And I have the same problem. I'm the designer. I invent this stuff, and I'm always inventing things related to shotguns and other things. And that's where some of our problems have happened. I ignored McKenna's dictums, and I said, let's go off and do this cool thing because it's cool. And it got us into trouble. I will tell you something that's happened in the last 2 years is I hired a boss. So we hired a COO who is now my boss. And he's one of his jobs, and one of the areas he's been useful is he reins me in, so I can't do anything anymore without his permission. um most bosses, most company owners, founders have more discipline than I do, but I needed that guy. So we can't run off and do cool things because they're cool, because one or two guys I talked to said, this is a great idea. And I ran with it. He's,
Well, that's a creative person problem, right? And you sound to me like you're a quick starter as well. So that's a creative person quick starter problem where it's like, hey, I don't really want to live here anymore. All right, I'm gonna move to a place I've never seen before. Reno looks cool. Let's go there.
yeah, that's
Right.
part of it, I suppose. Yeah.
And that's your strength. But as always, everyone always says, like, your strength can be your weakness. But if you can, it seems like that you're taking the steps to rein that in. I think that's important for business owners to understand. You use the software example, and I like to think about feature creep, right? Where it's like I buy something, and it's not like, so I'll write emails for clients, and then they'll be on some platform. And every year that platform adds a couple steps for me to be able to send out their emails. And it just annoys me because it's like, I don't want this feature. I just want it simple. And there's increasing features, increasing friction, and it makes the user experience goes down because the people who are in charge are more focused. And like we said, like, okay, well, let's just do something to do something. And so I think that's a really important lesson for people in the firearm space is, don't leave your core group behind just because you want to go off on a wild hare.
Also, the feature creep is a problem, and it's definitely a problem with me. And I sit here, we'll have a meeting and we'll talk about, hey, we have this cool idea. And you'll say, yeah, that's a cool idea, but is it a practical cool idea? I mean, in the firearms business, I'll have an example. This might be controversial. Some of your viewers are going to say, I'm full of crap, but the cool idea that's always out there that everybody wants to do is a field replaceable barrel. Okay. So you can replace the barrel with a different chambering. And the ACR, the original Remington ACR had, I think, 4 different barrel chamberings that you could, in the field, you could just replace this thing. Added weight, cost, complexity, but wow, it was really cool. You could change the barrel. And I remember talking to the product manager about that because Remington was a customer of ours, and we used to, go down to Huntsville from time to time. He was very excited about that. And I used to think to myself, well, that is kind of cool. And I suppose if I was a machine gun operator, when the barrels are getting too hot, I would want to be able to field replace the barrel. But I couldn't think of too many other times that ever want to change calibers in the middle of a shoot. And if I did, and I was on an AR-15 platform, I could just replace the upper. And in any case, I don't have a lot of leeway in the calibers I want to change because I have to change the magazine well anyway. I mean, this is really cool, but what's the point of this? Why are you doing it? And I mention that example because I see every year, every few months, you see somebody pop up with here's this cool rifle that has interchangeable barrels. So, they're doing it again. I do that. And that's another reason why it's good to have somebody internal who isn't afraid to talk to you and tell you you're wrong.
Well, and I think also, like, the barrel example is a great example because maybe that was cool back in the day when there weren't a lot of options on the market, where everything was really super expensive, for different platforms. But today you can get you can trick out one platform in a certain, in a certain gauge, uh, and then just go do another one, and then you just pull off the other one. You know what I mean? Because it's like you said, like, you're not. And for me also, is if I'm using a shotgun, if I'm using a tactical shotgun, I want that thing to work, and I don't want to mess with it. Like, once I get it working, I just want to be able to put 1,000,000 rounds through it and have it always act the same and never touch it if I don't have to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, we're in a different world now than my father's world. I don't know anybody who owns one AR-15, right? Everybody's you get your different guns to either do different things or to try different things that you wanted to try. And whatever your economic circumstances, you definitely today, most of the people I talk to anyway, they have multiple guns. Whereas again, a person from my father's generation wouldn't have a lot of guns. I think the manufacturing process has made them cheaper compared to rent and eating. And that's something I often tell people, and maybe I sound kind of arrogant when I'm saying it because I'm assuming they can afford to do it. But I'll get a guy on the phone and he says, I got my grandfather's, Remington 1100, and I want to do this, this, and this to it. And they ask me all these questions about, taking the stock off and doing this and doing that. And I've done this several times. I said, look, yeah, the things that we make for the Remington 870, they'll fit on your grandfather's 1100, and you can do this, this, and this. But you know what you really ought to do? You should take your grandfather's 1100, put it in the safe, and go out to your local gun store, buy an 870 or whatever you want, and then you can trick that out with Mesa Tactical products. Don't screw around with your grandfather's 1100. Leave it the way it is. That's usually met with positive response because most of the people I talk to say, "Oh yeah, I guess maybe I'll just get another shotgun." It's um, and when he tells the wife, he says, "Well, the guy on the phone said I need another shotgun, so I need another one." So he gets to get another
Well,
one.
it's a lineage thing. My dad gave me a single shot Ducks Unlimited 20 gauge shotgun. Right. I'm not going to mess with that thing. I'm going to give that to my son. Right. Like, why would I go get it's like I wasn't trying to trick that gun out. Right. Well, it's this big, but exactly. Like, I agree with you 100%.
Well, for some people, it's the only gun they're going to have access to, and those people unfortunately can't afford to hey, go out and get another one. It's easy for me to say, but for most people, I think most of the people I get on the phone, yeah, go get another one.
Well, even but like your regular people, so like even from the AR platform, I mean, you can get a Palmetto Armory, AR that you're never, as a normal human being, you're never going to run too many rounds through that to where you're never going to shoot so many rounds over that you have to replace the barrel. And if you do, then you'll be ready to upgrade the gun from there, And I think it's funny when people buy these guns and then they put these, you're going to put $1,000 optic on your $500 gun, right? Like let's everybody calm, let's get good at the iron sights, right?
Well, I got to be careful about that because with some of our products, especially our hydraulic collapsing stock, it costs more than the gun.
But the
that's the thing that people say, this thing costs more than the gun. And I
say,
well,
but the difference is that the gun that they're using, it's like the Glock 17, right? Or the Glock 19. It's like, okay, the reason why the gun is inexpensive is because there's been 1 billion rounds put through it, and it can be, and it's 20, they know it works. And so if the purpose of the gun is to shoot every time, not jam and work properly, then then you can add these other things to it, but especially if you're proficient at it. But for someone that's just starting out, they don't need to do all of that. You know what I mean? Like if once you get good and you start to kind of get around your gun, then we'll start tricking it out and get good on it. And but especially from a police officer perspective, that's why the guns are expensive, is because they've been produced for so long. There's billions of units out there.
Yeah, you can do them cheaply. We had a just one of the most amazing experiences I had was during the pandemic, whatever this virus thing, and no lockdowns in northern Nevada. We didn't have any of that. But as you know, there was a tremendous gun boom that lasted two solid years, and unfortunately, it was followed by a horrible crash because of the supply chains were all screwed up. But that gun boom, the NSSF, they say, I don't know, something between, it's a big number, between 7 and 15 million new gun owners in America. Nobody knows exactly the real number, but I'm pretty sure I had half of them on the phone at one time.
Nice.
It was nice, and it was fun. It was gratifying because I'm a kind of guy, I like talking to new gun owners. I think many people in this business get impatient with them, but I get people on the phone who because they're buying their first gun. For whatever reason, they decided it was going to be a shotgun, and they're on the phone with me because at the shop, the guy behind the counter said, you need to get this, and this for Mesa Tactical. And I always was fascinated by that. I was like, I never talked to that guy behind the counter. Where is he getting this impression? And why is he telling this first-time gun owner that he needs to have my stuff? I'm glad he's doing it. But it was fascinating talking to so many people. Every day I had these people on the phone who never touched a firearm. They're buying their first gun. And I have a lot of experience, when we were in California with introducing people to shooting, because we would every month we'd have an employee shoot. All the employees come out. We'd have 15, 20 guns, free ammunition. Bring your relatives, bring your friends, and if they've never fired a gun, we'll take them off to the side. We'll teach them the rules, and we'll take them with a 22. we'll get them shooting. And by the end of the day, everybody's shooting 12 gauge shotguns, AR-15s, M1 grands, you name it. Everybody's having a great time. So I had a lot of experience with new people. It was really a lot of fun talking to these people over the phone, but also very educational, because a firearm, what I learned, is a very unique consumer item. First, it's the only consumer item where you are expected to know how to take it apart and put it back together again.
Hmm.
Even if you buy a bicycle, if you buy a car, a car is a very expensive or very complicated piece of machinery. Where you're not expected to fix a car, you take the car to professional fixers. Even most people who own bicycles probably take their bicycle if it needs it to a shop. But you are expected to think about this, because you're a gun guy. I don't know, most gun guys never think about this. It's the only consumer item I can think of that you are expected to be able to take it apart, put it back together again, and to have whatever minimal number of tools to do that. Simply to buy the thing, simply to own the thing. And that was such a big change for these guys, because they said, I need to do this, this, and this. And I said, well, you need to take the trigger group out. And they said, well, I'm not doing that. I said, well, look in the manual. You have to take the trigger group out. It's part of the cleaning, regimen. And, I would get resistance from guys. And then, I'd get them back on the phone and they say, hey, I took the trigger group out. I put it back in and it works great. I can't believe I did that.
Yeah.
So many people don't have that experience in their everyday lives. And for us, those of us who are in the firearms community, it's just like a second nature thing. But no, a firearm, aside from its purpose, is quite a different consumer item, quite a different thing to have in the house, compared to almost everything else that we have. I mean, just think of everything that's in your kitchen, all those machines, and you don't have anything to do with them except push the button, make them go. You don't even clean them, probably. I mean, when's the last time you cleaned an oven? I never.
We cleaned our oven one time, and then it broke it, and it was during the middle of the nonsense, and so it broke a sensor or something because it got too hot, and so then we did the self clean, and then it was impossible. We didn't have an oven. We didn't have an oven for like 3 months because we couldn't get. I was so mad at my wife. It's like, I can't believe you cleaned this. Never again. But yeah, no,
stop cleaning the oven.
Right. And I think that's a very astute point. Well, because you have to have a safe, right? Like I have 2 gun safes, right? Because I have kids, and you got to know how to clean it. You got to know how to clean it, right? You got to know how to take it apart and clean it.
Cleaning it, cleaning it and stripping it. Those are big things for most people. You go down the street to your neighbors and talk, and go into their houses and talk to them about it. And again, I'm not one of these guys. I was a firearms activist, a two-way activist for a long time when I was in California. One of the things I did not like about that community was this sort of, it's any community you're going to get. It's an ideological thinking, and you run into it where you run into a lot of people who think every problem can be solved by a gun, and of course that's not true. And if you say that to people, you just turn them off, right? Because they know they're not interested in every problem being solved by a gun. We're just mostly interested in making sure that they don't take our guns away. But there's so much that goes into possessing a firearm and being, having a minimal level of proficiency with it. That the closest example I can think of that's not a gun is a bicycle. I just rode my bike in today. I ride bike, and my bike needs to be fixed, and I have to fix it. And there's just nothing else other than that people have in their house that's close to that. So it was a big departure for people who having to buy their first firearm. And obviously, you and I, we both hope it was a positive experience for most of these people. I'm afraid what most of them did was they bought the gun and they put it in the closet and they forgot about it, or they got rid of the gun after a year or two when their fears subsided, whatever caused them to buy the gun in the first place. But I know personally that more than a handful of them took it out and shot it all the time, and now got more guns because they thought this is something I want to do. So that was a silver lining on that mess.
You touched on a through line there, that one thing that a lot I would say 90%, if not 100% of the people that I interview that have successful businesses, and by successful business, I mean people who are in business, right? That they stay in business. Um, that to me is a successful business. And then you can have levels from there, is that they all have this customer service through line with them. Whereas they don't have a problem talking to a brand new person who knows nothing, because they understand that even if that person doesn't buy from them, that it makes you better at your craft at talking to people about what you do, but two, it's just a cost of doing business is to educate people, and then you can create a customer for life in a firearms business. Now, not everyone's going to buy from you, and not everyone that buys from you is going to come back, but you will create customers for life if you just spread the word about and believe in what you do. And that is a through line for everyone that I talk to, is the customer service approach that you're talking about, for sure.
It's interesting. Yeah, we take pride in our customer service, and of course, we get complaints. Some people have had a bad experience, and some people either they fell through the cracks, or some people you just can't please. And that's in our industry. That's something that at the retail level is really needs to be emphasized. And I've been saying it for years. And again, if I say something you think I'm talking about you, yeah, then you're the problem. I mean, a lot of gun stores, you walk in and it's a scary place. If you know anything about guns, and you walk up and the guys behind the counter are there to intimidate you, especially for women. Many women, I'm sure, will walk into many gun stores and just turn the hell around and walk back out. They're not a friendly, inviting place, and they can be. I I, I don't want to mention names, just even positively at this point, just because I'll leave somebody out. But there's a gun store, and they have multiple locations in the country, and they're a big online store, but they have a retail business in Orange County, where we used to be. And I knew the owners. I know the owners. I know them, since both of us were starting our companies at the same time. This place, first of all, it's busy as hell all the time. This place is unbelievable. It's a very large store, and the people behind the counter are these young guys. They're young, enthusiastic, and knowledgeable. And they're just fantastic guys, and they know what they're talking about. There's so many, there's so many people behind the counter of the gun store who just see all kinds of crazy crap. But these guys know what they're talking about. And if you don't know anything about guns and you walk up and you have questions, they will answer the questions. And that was the downside of this place, because you had to take a number and wait, because, it was a crowded place. They had so many people behind the counter, and some of the customers they were working with, they were just hand-holding them and really helping them with all kinds of dumbass first-time customer questions. Excellent customer service. And this company is a very successful company, a very successful retailer, both online and at least in this location in Orange County. And I remember asking the owner, I said, because as you said in the beginning of the podcast, hiring people is one of the hardest things to do. I said, my God, the guys you have behind the counter, they're fantastic. Where do you get them? What do you do? What kind of a training program do you have for them? I really wanted to know. And she said, she was being cryptic about it. She wouldn't tell me anyway. The end of the story. She wouldn't tell me. She just said, we find these guys.
Didn't want to give up her secret, but
I don't know. You don't find these guys. These guys aren't just, sitting around at street corners. Excellent. But anyway, to your point, the customer service in that place was extraordinary compared to a lot of their competition, which are frankly scary.
Well,
and we should.
No matter how big your company is, no matter what you produce, product, experience, or service, no matter where you are in the country, you can always gain a competitive edge over anyone else with your customer service, because that is something that you have 100% control over. And that is a through line of what I've seen through a lot of the successful businesses that I've talked to. Well, listen, Mitch, we're on the downside here at the end of our time. I really enjoyed talking to you and want to bring you back on the show in 6 months or so to see how you guys are doing. How do people find you? I know it's mesatactical.com is the website. Is there the phone number is 775-333-9800. Is there an email if people have questions that they can send to you?
Yeah, sales, and easy to remember one would be sales@mesatactical.com.
Perfect. Great.
If you have a question.
And are you the one that does the support on that, or is that how they get to you if they have any questions for you specifically? If it's a Leo or
I'm the guy who will answer that email. Yeah.
amazing.
So
All
I'm
right.
at the moment, I'm the sales guy and the designer guy.
Well, again, I really enjoyed having you on today. I think it's a great place to stop with regards to the customer service. It's easy to see why you guys have been in business for so long. Hang on after I stop the recording, but thanks for coming on, and I'd love to have you on again.
Oh, thanks a lot, Wade. It was a pleasure doing this.
All right, Mitch, we'll talk soon.